Hi, it's Chris Jarvis with the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish, and today we are going to be talking about what is fly fishing. So I get a lot of questions from folks asking about what does it look like when you are fly fishing? What are the basics? So I'm going to go through really quickly in just a few minutes the basics of fly fishing. So fly fishing is a way to deliver flies, these artificial tied with fur and feather bugs that imitate insects. It's a way to deliver them out onto the water. The flies are so small and so light that you can't really cast them with a spin cast or spinning rod, so we use something called a fly rod. Fly rods are typically a little bit longer than most rods, and they're designed to hold this plastic floating line. So in fly fishing, this line has the weight. This is what we're actually going to be casting, because if we tried to cast this little tiny fly that you can barely see, it wouldn't work out so well. So instead of casting the fly, we cast the weight. So here we have the fly rod, the fly line, and this reel has drag if you pull it this way, and when you reel it in this way, it just reels in the line. A very simple fly reel. There's not much to these. Now there's one other thing I want to mention, and that is that if we were to tie this fly right to the end of that plastic line, it wouldn't look very realistic. So what we do is we tie something on called a leader. And a leader is a tapered piece of monofilament that is really fat on one side. This is probably 20 to 25 pound test. And as you go down the leader, it gets skinnier and skinnier until you get down to where you tie on the fly. This is probably 4 to 6 pound test. So it went from 25 pound test to 4 to 6 pound test. That is designed to help that fly turn over and lay out nicely, that tapered leader. And then this particular setup, I have two flies. So off the bend of the dry fly, I have a little nymph tied on, and that's gonna sink. So that little nymph's gonna be underwater, and the dry fly is gonna be up on top of the water floating. So once you have your fly rig set up with your fly line, your little bit longer rod, your flies, either one or two, a dry fly and a nymph if you want, or just a dry fly, now you've got to cast this stuff out there. What's different about casting a fly rod is that when you cast a fly rod, you are going to be throwing those flies backward and then forward. So you have to make sure that you know what's behind you. If I just throw back there and those flies go back and get caught in a tree, then I'm not going to be fishing. I'm going to be getting my flies out of a tree. So I got to look before I cast and make sure I know what's behind me. So I'm going to throw the flies backward, and then I'm going to throw them forward. And once that line is out and moving backward and forward, it's going to help deliver the flies. Now once those flies hit the water, I want to hold my arm up high, and I want to try and make those flies, or allow those flies, to drift as naturally as possible. They should look just like they're floating down the river naturally. I don't want to be pulling them. I don't want to be dragging them across the water. I want them to float naturally. And I'm watching those flies really closely. I'm not going to feel the fish bite. I'm going to see the fish bite. So if I see something come up and take my dry fly, I'm going to lift up and set the hook. If I see my dry fly go under, I'm going to go, I bet they took that nymph underneath, and I'm going to set the hook. Either way, if my flies do anything kind of funny, I'm going to set the hook thinking that's a fish. If nothing's there, I'm just going to cast back out and keep putting my flies in the most likely spots. So let's go out to the water and see if I can catch a fish using these two flies, my little parachute Adams, and this is a little pheasant tail fly that I tie. I think they're going to work really good today. I've seen some mayflies flying around, and I think that's going to work for us. So we'll give it a try. Join us as we head out to the water and try to catch a fish. Nice little brown, 8 dry fly. Now we're going to release the fish. You just want to gently slide the hook out, slip him back into the water, and away he goes. See him swimming. So that's fly fishing. cool thing about fly fishing is once you let that fish go, you don't have to rebait your hook. All you have to do is make sure it's dry and cast out again. So we're gonna keep going in this little pool, see if we can catch another one.